The financial views and opinions expressed by the host and guests on this program do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of 1077 The Bronx, Rider University, or Certified Wealth Management and Investment. The material discussed is not designed to provide the listeners with individual financial, legal, or tax advice.
Show me the money!
Where's my money, man?
Here comes the money!
Here we go.
It's time to grow your bank as 1077 The Bronx presents Master Your Finances with Kurtis Baker, a certified financial planner professional with certified wealth management and investment. Kurt and his team of financial guests will help you turn those singles into seas of green and plan your financial future accordingly. Now here's your money managing host for the hour, Kurtis Baker.
Are you aware that plants can be grown without soil? Do you understand the benefits of hydroponics, particularly its impact on food insecurity? Desmond Hayes, the founder of GeoGreens, has 3 degrees in architecture, civil engineering, and environmental science, and has worked as a full-time project manager for construction companies in New York and New Jersey before stepping away to work full-time on the farm. He will discuss the importance of hydroponics as a way to have a direct impact on our food and water, land use and deforestation, and carbon footprint, as well as teach you the fundamentals of hydroponics, clean eating, and vertical farming. Desmond, I appreciate you coming on. This is an exciting topic. I know this is one of these things that you like read about in popular science like 20 years ago, like maybe one day we're going to do this and that. And you're like, yeah, right. I'll just put it in my garden in the back and do with it, right? So this is one of those like futuristic things that's now the cover of the magazine is now like, you're doing it. You're making it happen. What you guess? 3 degrees. Obviously you're a brilliant guy. So give us how did you get here? Or give us some basics. Like, how do you have these 3: architecture, civil engineering, environmental science, and then kind of walk us through how you got to this point, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me here. Definitely another another pin in my hat for being in a different podcast and being on Rider University. So a little bit of the background. When I was younger, I was always one that used to love art and drawing and buildings and whatnot, and I was always an environmental guy. I ended up, doing undergraduate in South Jersey and doing my graduate up in North Jersey, NJIT, and that's where I took the the courses on architecture. After I dove into a little bit more, my creative genes, they were sparking and that was there, but I just realized it wasn't something that I could specifically, just continue to go forward with. And again, I was still a very heavily environmental guy, paying attention to what was happening in the world, carbon issues, just the greenhouse gases, things of that nature. Should I pause?
My bad.
Okay.
You're saying
what?
Hydro. I sound like you were saying hydroponics. Did you spell it?
Phonics. Oh, did you stop us? Wait.
No, I didn't. We can edit it in post. We got
Okay.
this.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
So we're going to keep going. Hydroponics. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, as I was finishing up, the architecture degree and getting more into my graduate program, I saw the chance to take environmental science. Now, environmental science wasn't as popular as it is right now and as it has been becoming over the past few years. When I took it, it was more of a hunch. It was more one of those things where I knew it was going to go somewhere because people started throwing out that word, those magical words, sustainability, greenness, green certification. And, just as a younger guy, I was looking into it and a lot of this stuff made sense. I knew where it was going. So again, it was a hunch and it worked out for me. Ended up getting a degree, had some great professors that really made me think about different levels on how it can impact the environment. So you fast forward a few more years afterwards, started getting into the working world, had my civil engineering degree, started doing some construction and buildings, roads and highways, so on and so forth. And again, similar to my architecture degree, I just realized it wasn't something that I could see me doing for a long period of time, just retiring from that. I just didn't feel like I was really contributing to anything, or anybody. Not to throw or discourage, construction. We need that. The world needs that. But after you teach a certain amount of it, I feel like a lot of people can do it. It's
Right.
not I don't know, it's not rocket science, but you can train, you can get trades, so on and so forth, for construction, to construct a building, roads, bridges, so on and so forth. Hydroponics is more of an art and a science behind it. Yeah, I have to train people for it. People that work with me or work under me. But there's still certain things that you're not going to get from a book. There's certain things that when I'm in my farm in the facility, I can spot check just from an eye test and say, okay, this produce or this crop over here isn't getting enough ventilation. They're not getting enough nutrients. The light's not holding well on it. Those types of things is the art to it. The science, obviously, all the numbers, all the parameters, everything in the indoor environment that contributes to making the plant conducive and making it conducive for the plant to grow on the interior. But that's where I really started to latch on indoor growing and hydroponics.
So if you don't mind, let's get back to some basics. Like, what is hydroponics?
Sure.
And how did you kind of get connected with that? Because, I mean, you got
Yeah.
the creative, you got the science, you got the engineering, you got all the pieces to build this thing. So one is, what is it? And two, how did you actually get this business going? And actually, what were the steps that you took to get to kind of where you're at now, where you're actually doing the facility? So let's just start with, what is hydroponics?
Yeah, so hydroponics, it's the art, again, the art and the science, or the science of creating produce or crops or vegetation soilless, so completely in water and nutrient mixes. So I would love to say I invented it, but it's been around since the Greek times. It's been around for a long, long time. It's just, I took the concept of it and the education behind it, and they had actually made it into something and just made it more tangible than just readable. It's no longer a concept.
Okay.
It's now you can actually
So
do something about
if it's been around since the Greek time, why now? And why now is it coming back?
happening?
Because, I mean, there's a lot of dirt in the country.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
lot-
Even though we're building, there's still
Right.
a little bit of dirt left.
The problem with the problem is, or one of the problems is, conventional farming, conventional meaning outside. To your point, while there is plenty of dirt, plenty of soil, after you continue to grow conventionally in soil, those crops and that produce extracts a lot of nutrients from the farmlands. So now you have to either create more farmlands because you have to knock down trees and, again, contribute to deforestation and those things. And now you're also removing habitats and animals and those types of things from those natural farmlands. So one, it's not, eco-friendly from that standpoint. And two, conventional farming it's just an inefficient way of the utilization of water. So if I'm just throwing numbers out there, I believe the last time I checked, I want to say 40% of the planet's fresh water is used for agriculture.
Wow.
60% of that is wasted. It's a lot of water.
That's a lot. California wasted. Probably wants some of that back because they keep wondering where their water is.
A lot of water, yeah. I mean, and it's just from all the sprinklers. I'm sure
I guess it evaporates and it just kind of
it evaporates, but the sprinklers they go
everywhere.
off at certain points in time. Some of them don't even hit plants, so now you have a lot of waste too. Sometimes they overwater plants, so it's just a very inefficient way of farming and creating produce. Hydroponics, on the other hand, you can create different systems and methods for salvaging or recycling the water. So now you have that, but that's the benefit too.
So it sounds like the scarcity of water, because I mean, they're in certain parts of the world, especially in the United States, we tend to be pretty blessed, with the exception of like California's having a problem.
We waste a lot of water in the U.S.
We waste a lot, but in other parts of the world, this is like a real. Like, there is no water to speak of.
They treat water like an actual true resource. They don't they don't waste water like we do, where we'll just keep water running while we walk away in the room or the living room. The water in the sink is still running. That's just completely wasteful. Right. So again, farming is very just inefficient. Efficient way of growing the produce.
So we got to that point where it makes sense to like think about this resource as a true resource, and you just can't waste it. We have to pay attention to it. So is that why this is like growing as a no pun intended, but growing as an industry.
It's a whole lot of puns you could use for growing, but it's because it's much more of an environmentally friendly way of growing. Also, one of the big contributing factors is now the LEDs for growing indoors. If you remember when they came out, they were immensely expensive. Right. Fast forward 10 years later, a decade later, now they're not as expensive. So now you're starting to see a lot of different companies come up with their own version of LEDs, and the cost is nowhere near where it used to be a decade ago.
Because
so
the
now
energy
you can
costs,
use it.
right?
Energy costs.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got solar panels now.
Right.
So all those things come into play to now be able to make it more of economical way of
There you
farming versus years ago where you would be spending. Your expenses would be a heck of a lot more than any more money that you actually be bringing in. It's
Right, so if you're
still a
using
very-
incandescent lights, they're going to use a lot more energy than the new
Incandescent lights,
than
those-
the LEDs, right?
LEDs, the benefits to LEDs versus the other lights is that they also don't create as much heat.
Right.
That's very, very critical when you have either a small office or even a large warehouse.
Because you're going to
creating a lot
evaporate the
of
water
heat.
too, right? The water's
You're
going to...
evaporating water, but the water, if it gets too hot,
Yeah.
it creates pests. If the water gets too hot, it creates algae. All these things are restrictions as to why you don't want to, have the indoor environment and that space too hot.
Okay.
So LEDs help towards that one main parameter. And other light bulbs, again, it'll create a lot
So
of
that
heat.
sounds like that was a major piece of this economic puzzle. So when those
LEDs.
LEDs came down in price,
LEDs was huge.
it starts to make sense for you to, the energy cost is not too crazy. So you can actually, so people start doing this. So when did this kind of like take off, and when did you kind of get started with this thing? I mean, you're out there working on the roads. Working, so decided,
Yeah, that was. I did
what
a
was it, like a
complete
hot day
turn.
or something? You said, I want to go
I did a
indoors.
complete turn. No, I mean, I was taking, while I was in college and after college, I was experimenting with a lot of things. I was trying to read on a lot of different areas where I could test and contribute to the environment.
Okay.
I took classes over in California on something called gray water, which is the recycle of water that goes down the sink, not water that goes down the toilet.
Right.
Water you can actually filter and reuse.
Right. That's
That
the
was a
black
great
water.
black
That's
water.
the black water versus gray
and then
water, right?
Black
Yeah.
water is the
I remember
toilet
that.
and then the bathtubs. Gray water is in the main sinks and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great idea, but I couldn't. It just didn't catch. I took a class, like I said, and was reading. It just didn't catch me for it. Solar panels. I started looking at those before those got real big. Didn't really garner my attention. Wind energy, I was really heavy on that, and geothermal energy, I really thought I was going to gravitate to that one, but the cost and there's also certain things in the environment it's not the best either. So because I'm basically just doing a process of elimination over this point in time. And then one day, I was living over there near the shore, near the Asbury Park area. There was a hydroponics store. I was actually I think I was grocery shopping or something that day. And I saw a hydroponics store, and just like every other day, I went in there, talked to a couple of people, took a bunch of supplies and materials, took it home, started building, started growing. My house was like in shambles for like a good few months because I was learning everything on the fly.
So
And
we're going to
just
catch
kept
that.
going.
We're going to take a quick break. That's awesome. We're going to do the hydroponics. Went to the store. We're going to be right back. You'll listen to Master Your Finances.
Yeah, you've got loads of money, but it's all about how you manage it. Let's get back to learning how to grow your green with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment, only on Master Your Finances.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Desmond Hayes, and we're talking about hydroponics. And before the break, it was kind of your process of elimination. You knew you wanted to affect the world. You had a greater purpose. You weren't sure exactly what it was, but you knew it had to do with the environment.
Yeah.
So you went through kind of some of the traditional ones, right? Wind and solar and,
Just recycled water.
Yeah. So and these are all we'd heard of. And honestly, this hydroponic thing is... I heard a little experiment. I think I read it in like Popular Science years ago. Like here's what you do, and you're like, okay. But it was never really something that felt like scalable. So now the LED thing comes in, and now, you get the energy cost down, you get the heat down. Wow, now maybe we can actually do something here. So,
Right.
So you went to that store, you talked to a few people. What happened next after you had that conversation? And you took the stuff home and a mess out of your house, right? So,
Right.
anybody
House was
living
in
with you? Were you
shambles.
by yourself, or you don't have anybody there
No,
with you?
it was that was just me. That
All
was
right,
me.
so
I had
so you
people.
didn't at least have to explain it to somebody
I
else.
did when I had people over. I did because
like, what's going on here, man?
the lights will be on for 18 hours, and that's going beyond midnight. So people will be looking at my heart like, "What the heck why are the lights
Oh, that's so
bright
funny.
over there?" And I would have to tell them like, "Yeah, I'm growing produce over there
I'm a
now.
bright guy, man.
The problem with that is you gotta, and the same thing that's going on right now with hydroponics is because of the not new industry, but the cannabis industry.
Right.
I also have to tell people and preface every single time I have something like this or a presentation, I'm not growing cannabis. Hydroponics, again, started a long time ago with produce. I'm not growing cannabis.
Oh, yeah,
so
I know.
every single time, I always have to preface that, like,
So you're not throwing weed in the closet,
I'm not doing that. Even my landlord, it was
That's so
one
funny.
time at the same place. My landlord texted me one day and was like, hey, some water is leaking from your space, from your apartment. And this is, again, when I was building everything from scratch. And one of the tubes came out and there was water leaking. So she went up there and was like completely caught off guard. And I had to go back to her later on that day, like, I'm not growing weed. It's just, I think I was growing lettuce at the time.
Right, okay.
Because all she saw was produce. She saw lights and everything, but she didn't know what the heck it was.
Right,
Like,
right.
Don't worry, we're not gonna get arrested. I'm just going produce. This is something I'm testing right now. So don't worry. So she was, they was great landlords.
Well, it's
to me.
good
So
you
they
had
knew
a
what I
good
was trying to
landlord,
do.
'cause
Yeah,
they
they
might-
were great. They were great landlords.
That's good.
Yeah. But I mean, from that point on, beyond that small issue, I just kept growing and just kept practicing. Again, kept developing art. I made document of everything. I still go back to some of the notes I had from 8 years ago.
Wow.
Just so I can make sure, okay, I'm staying in tune with everything that I learned from before, and I self-taught myself, still applying it today. So I'll still
Okay.
reach out and go back to the long notebooks that I used to have too. But
So you
I
got
just
the
started getting more
concept
passion
down.
for
Now,
it.
once you get the concept down, I mean, I assume you're no longer in the apartment with the landlord.
I-
You've grown out of that, I think, is my recollection.
Now I am, yes. I'm no longer there.
So what happened after that? You go, I got proof of concept. This is going to work. At least that's what you thought, from your scale.
I started doing a couple pop-up shops, testing the products in like gyms and
Okay.
testing in different centers and getting good feedback. Some not so much.
So you're growing it there, or are you selling it there?
No, I was growing it and selling it there.
Oh,
So I had
interesting.
a couple, had a couple colleagues, couple family members, reaching out saying, hey, we got this type of event coming up. Do you want to, trying to get the company out there a little bit?
Right.
Or they would say, hey, I joined a gym. Do you want to, want me to give out some of these samples? And I ended up just doing that. And again,
Okay.
the feedback was good.
Okay.
So now I got some good feedback. Now I got a couple small time, B2B, people or business B2C customers
Right.
that are coming back consistently for the greens that I'm producing. So now I got a little momentum going with me
Okay.
for right now.
Good.
This was right on the right on the beginning of COVID. So now the momentum I'm starting to garner is just got knocked completely away because now we all in the house. We can all
There's no
lock
going
down.
to the gym with your
not going
hydroponics.
anywhere now.
Yeah,
so
right.
that was honestly the tipping point for me because what I realized was, and I think what a lot of entrepreneurs realize at some point, I'm putting so much effort into working for somebody else at the
Yeah.
time. All that time and energy where, again, I was working in New York. So that's 2 hours there,
Right.
work 10 hours, 2 hours back. That 14, 15 hours I'm putting in, I was putting it all into the company, my company. So now I'm like, all right, well, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do this. So
Right.
that was a turning
So
point.
this opened a door of opportunity
That's
for you.
what it was.
There
That
you
was
go.
the
That's
turning
awesome.
point.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then with COVID and the health issues, all the things that was going
Yeah.
around, it's being spread in the news. I'm like, this could definitely be something to help people and get better
So
results.
now what was
from
your next
eating
step?
better-
Now you went from
better
like
foods.
having it at these different locations, like the gyms and these different places.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you move to where you are now? Because you got a
All-
pretty
all-
good sized facility now, right?
During that whole time, that 8 year period, I was always doing again research and looking into different markets that
Okay.
I knew I could get into. So getting to the senior level, like assisted living and wellness centers, that was something I had seen. Like, okay, if they get better produce, I'm sure they could be a great client. Hospitals, selling them directly, colleges and institutions. A subscription-based platform, something called a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, where it's, again, a subscription. This, again, was at a time where everything was being subscription, everything was delivered. So I knew that could be another revenue source, somewhere else I could really, get some good attention and create a niche for myself in there too. So all this I was doing, and again, researching, and at the time I also had something called a virtual assistant, which I tell my little brother and other family members, hey, I know you're working full time. There's no way you're always going to have the same amount of energy by the end of the day. You can get a virtual assistant. They could do certain tasks for you throughout the
Right.
course of the day, and then give you back their feedback, and then you can continue on whatever you're trying to do, whatever
Right.
you're trying to research on. So I had hired a virtual assistant, and I still have them to this day,
Right.
and get about 100 tasks a month, and I'm just shooting things out there, and me documenting everything, all the research, all the demographics, the percentages, all this stuff that I'm doing just as market analysis before I decided to really, get the facility I'm in right now. So by the time I got to the facility, I knew everybody I was going to start reaching out to. It was just a
Okay.
matter of the word of mouth. So I had done all that due diligence, all that homework, so that by the
Doing
time
your homework,
it's
that's
good,
important.
I was ready to go. So when I got to this facility, I knew I wanted to go into these niches the wellness centers and the schools and everything like that. Again, it was just a matter of starting to create the brand and starting to create
Okay.
the name. So as I got in there, luckily it was Mercer County was extremely good to us, and they started pushing the name, pushing the brand out there to certain agencies, certain organizations too, and they started reaching back out to us too. So it really kind of just organically took its own life from there, and even till this point right now, where we're in the process of trying to expand because the brand is carrying on even more. But again, we're constricted or confined within the space. We're growing indoors, so it's only so much I can produce, only so much volume that we can supply before we can't supply no more. And I don't want to be that person saying, okay, yeah, just taking the business on, but I can't satisfy it.
So you mentioned the term organic. If you don't mind explaining, 'cause you did this during the workshop.
Oh,
the difference
yeah,
between organic
yeah,
and
organics.
hydroponics, the pros and cons. Because organic, I think, is maybe misunderstood. We want to kind of explain what
Right.
that term really is and how that compares to like what you're doing.
Right. So let me take a step back. One of the first things I always have people answer is when I have tours at my facility, the first thing I ask is, what do you know about organics? I want to say 90 to 95% of the people, first thing it says, oh, that's the best. It's no pesticides, right? And I have to say, no, that's no. I laugh, but I seriously joke. I'm like, no, that's what everybody thinks. That's
Right.
what the masses want you to think. Organic simply means less pesticides in
Right.
it. It still has pesticides in it, and certain ones have a good amount of pesticides in it. And you can easily find this online. There's a list of pesticides that certain farmers can use in certain amounts, but organic still has pesticides in it versus us. What we're doing, we're growing indoors. And what happens when you grow indoors, and what I require people to do is when we have tours, even my employees, even my current landlord, if you come in my space, you have to get geared up. You
Like
have
a
to
clean
wear-
room, it sounds like.
You got to wear PPE. You got to wear shoe guards. You got to wear a
Wow.
hairnet. You got to wear gloves. All
Going to
this
the
is
operating
so.
room.
Yep. All this is so people can't bring pests in, because a lot of people don't realize, you get pests on your clothes, insects,
Yeah.
insect dropping, stuff like that in your hair, definitely underneath your shoes. I can't. That's like our bread and butter. I can't bring pests in here. So
Right.
you have to wear those types of things. So we don't have pests. Therefore, we don't have to spray pesticides. So this is more natural and a lot cleaner than anything else you're going to eat. Versus organics, where a lot of people think that's the best, they still have pesticides. The other side of that, and what I'll try to educate people on, because it's a big education factor of growing indoors and what people think they know, what's actually true out there. You also have to realize where your produce is coming from. So even if it is organic, if the farm is 3 miles away from a highway, you get a lot of exhaust on your produce.
Oh, right,
You're not saving anything by saying, oh, I eat organics. If it's 3 miles from the highway, you're getting a lot of exhaust on there. Obviously, if it's being grown from, I say California, there's a lot of trucking that goes in there. So as soon as you harvest produce, it starts to die. So if
Right.
we're getting, I'll say lettuce again from California, it gets harvested, put on the truck, couple days, trucked over here, couple more days, in the supermarket, couple days, sits on the shelves, couple days, you buy it, couple days.
Right.
You're talking about 2 to 3 weeks by the time that crop has been harvested and has been dead. So you're no longer eating nutrient-dense food. You're just eating dense food. That's not helping you at all. And just stamping organics on it doesn't make it any better. It's still dead food with slightly less pesticides on it. So you're not gaining anything from just saying you eat organics. You have to know where your produce is coming from too. So one of the benefits to what we're doing and what separates us from us is that we eliminate that middle guy, the distributor.
Right.
So we supply everything directly. So when it goes to, we supply Princeton University, goes directly to the cafeteria. The health and wellness centers directly to their cafeteria and their shelves. The schools, where New Jersey right now has a pilot program where we're doing, there's a farm to schools, middle schools and elementary schools. We harvest it end of the week, it's in that school by the start of the week. So you're talking about 2 days of harvesting. They're getting the best product out there. I can't speak for anybody else, but I didn't have that option when I was in middle school. So I love that side of it, that I can provide that. So I know they're getting the benefit of eating better food.
Well, that's really awesome, man. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
If you want to learn how to make and manage that kind of money, turn the volume up as we get back to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Desmond Hayes, and we're talking about hydroponics. And I guess the difference between organic and hydroponics, the organic actually has less pesticides than conventional, but it still has pesticides based on what it is. You can look it up. So, and you also pointed out that a lot of it depends on like where you get the food from. And I think we hear a lot about this buy local. And, you know, I'm a big believer in that, just to support the local people, but it's also for your own benefit. If it's sitting in a truck for a week, as we point out, the food is dying. The food is dying the whole time, and so you're getting it a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, and that's when you're eating it. So the closer it is to where you get it from, and the fresher it is, the better the nutrient density is, and the better it is for you.
Right.
You also mentioned you grow. One thing I think maybe we should explain to people is that hydroponics is great, but there are benefits, and then there's still limitations. Like I remember in the presentation you told, like lettuce is different than tomatoes, as an example. So what are some of the parameters on what can be grown, how, and what kind of, like, the economics of, like, can you get anything hydroponics at this point, or like how does that work, and how do you make decisions on what to grow and things like that?
Yeah. So I mean, it definitely comes down to, you know, the market and the demographic of where the farm is located at, and who the operator or farmer is, who they're supplying to. So, you know, when we open up this facility we are right now, we understood that, you know, if we try to, for example, grow, you know, tomatoes, as you mentioned a little while ago, there's only so many tomato plants you actually fit in that type of space, and so many tomatoes that grow on a certain tree. And tomatoes are one of those crops that take, 3 to 4 months to grow. So economically, if you sit there and think of, okay, I'm just going to throw out some round numbers. If you throw, 20 tomato trees out there, each one is going to produce maybe 5 of them, 5 tomatoes. You got 100 tomatoes that took 4 months to grow. Now consider the fact that you're paying and your expenditures are all the expenses that go into creating these tomatoes. So the lights, the water, the mechanical, the ventilation, the pumps, everything is going into you growing 100 tomatoes in 4 months. Unless you're selling those tomatoes for $500 a pop, you're not going to make
Must
a
be
lot
a
of
really good tomato,
expensive.
man.
Exactly. You're not going to make a lot of sales from those types of tomatoes. I mean, they're great. Again, they're the natural type of growth hydroponically, but it has to make sense economically.
Right.
Then again, when it comes down to the demographics of where you're at, so some of the partners we work with, one in particular is food banks and food pantries. They've reached out to us, and we still work with one in particular in Mercer County, and said, okay, we want to supply so much lettuce. And I know, the urban areas, lettuce is not one of the go-tos. Now, if you drop spinach or collards, or in some cases kale in these areas, that'll fly off, the pantry shelves. Lettuce is not one of those things where, urban black, brown communities is going to run and gravitate to. So knowing what the demographic is and who you're supplying is huge. So we wanted to make sure we fine tune that as we got the facility that we're at. So that's why we grow the ones that we grow right now. There was some elimination because we wanted to throw out there that we can grow practically anything It's just a matter of, what the economics are going to come down to, how they're going to round out at the end of the day. So that played a huge part into providing information on what we grow right now. So hydroponically, anything that's a leafy green, again, lettuce, arugula, basil, different herbs, we can grow those hydroponically. Tomatoes, strawberries, you can grow hydroponically. There's several things you can. The ones or the types of produce you can't are anything that requires the produce to burrow or basically be
like
under the soil.
Like a carrot?
Carrots,
Yeah, okay.
carrots, potatoes,
yeah.
sweet potatoes, corn, those heavy vine types of crops. Those things you can't. It wouldn't surprise me over the next decade if
Somebody
it
will figure
doesn't
it
come
out.
out. This doesn't come.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it will. But those are the ones that separate from ones you can do and you can't do hydroponic. But again, it comes down to the size of the farm and how much the yield, how much you're getting out, and what you're selling it for. There's a farm, I believe, in Illinois that all they do is grow tomatoes. Now, they got thousands of acres of land out there. They have pollinating bees that they capture, and they're in a greenhouse, and they just sit there and pollinate all the time.
They just hydroponically? Really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
hydroponically.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. And they have workers out there, and they'll just harvest consistently, yearly round. And that's how that
So
works for
scale,
them.
I guess scale matters in this
Oh,
case.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've gotten asked that question several times on tours. Can you grow strawberries? Can you grow tomatoes? I say, yeah, I've done that before in the past, but economically it just doesn't make sense. Now, when we expand, the plan is to offer those, but still not to base the business around them.
Okay.
So that has a big deal with it. And again, the demographic. That's another reason why who we work with, we eliminated the distributor and we wanted to work directly with the customers. But at the same time, we've been asked about restaurants and caterers. And not to discourage those industries, we need those industries, but one of the other big focal points, again, that separates us is that we don't want to contribute to food waste.
Right.
And if you think about those industries, restaurants and caterers, it brings sales in for us, but every so often you got a week where they want a lot, then they don't want a lot. Caterers,
right.
same thing. They want a lot, then they don't want a lot. Same thing with the farmers markets. You have a great day or you can have a terrible weekend. So
Okay.
now I have all this produce that I have to figure out where to place it. And, dollars and cents aside, I don't want that just to go to waste. I want to make sure it's being
So how do
taken
you
advantage
manage
of.
that aspect? I mean, you bring up a great point because, the demand is not always, I mean, your crop is growing as it grows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how do you manage that supply and demand when you're trying to,
It came down to just relationships now.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, the clients that we have now, they understand, okay, if you want a certain quantity, certain volume, here are the advantages of it. You're going to get it every single week or how often you want it. It's going to be harvested just a few days before you get it. It's going to go right directly to you and you're going to get it around the clock. And if we need to jump up the volume, we will. Versus, again, that ebb and flow and that change in quantities that we don't like to contribute. So it's really the relationships now. The clients understand, okay, we have to tell GeoGreens this amount of time, and we'll get this consistently around the clock. Because, again, it's indoors. While crops outside right now are dying or conventional farmers aren't doing anything, my farm is still thriving right now. We're
Right.
growing 365 all the time. So right now we're harvesting tomorrow and Friday for deliveries for next week versus areas where they not producing anything because it's so cold outside right now. So
Okay.
it continually goes around the clock, and that's the benefit, that's the advantage. And that's why we're able to continue with the customers we got and continue to build more customers now too. So it's definitely worked itself out. It was just a matter of educating the people that weren't familiar with hydroponics and understanding it's no longer a concept. I'm actually
Right.
making this into a business, and we can make this very successful throughout the state. So that's the point.
So you figured it out. I know you've got all this research behind it. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
how did you get because it sounds like you've got a number of different partners that you're working with now. Obviously they got to support you. So they're coming to you because they support the cause, or is there an economic benefit to this at this point, or is it still one of these things where it's just better food, you're supporting a better way of doing this?
I think it's a mixture of several things. The whole local premise,
Right.
buy local within the state. And one of the, if not the, one of the main missions for us was always to go and attack and take care of food insecurity and food deserts. So that was the catapult or the catalyst for us working with our main client, which is getting to schools. Like they actually are a distributor, but they're a distributor that goes to food deserts and food insecure areas. So they work within Camden City in New Jersey. They work within Bridgeton.
Explain those two terms. I mean, I know what those mean, but explain what food insecurity actually means for people, and then what a food desert is. So most people have food, they're like, I just go to the grocery store and pick it up. No problem, right? I kind of explain like what those terms mean.
Yeah. So the term has like evolved over the last year and some change that we've been at. Obviously, it's been food deserts, food apartheid, food insecurity. I've heard 3 or 4 other ones that's escaping me right now, but it's just a matter of that specific area not having either supermarket or convenience store within a certain amount of mileage that those people within the area can't access. Right. So Trenton's one, the agency, New Jersey Economic Development Authority. They listed 50 of them in the state. That's just 50 of them that they know of. I could have listed off several more, but these are the ones that they feel are the most critical and they need the most attention.
Because a lot of things that people, unfortunately, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is like, especially lower income people, they tend to eat foods that are cheaper but not better for them because they don't have access to foods that are actually better for you and actually make them healthier, and they would ultimately net more positive, right? So so the problem is you've got this catch-22 where they're not eating well, so they're not performing well. I mean, and until you get the good food in them, I mean, you are what you eat, so to speak, right? So until you get good food in you, then you'll be healthier and you'll be able to work better.
And that's another thing I try to educate people on when they come in. And to your point, like I believe the last time I looked at it, the average household spends like $80 on supplements. You put that $80 into better food that you eat. Now you're not spending or just, quote unquote, popping pills because you need that additional nutrition and those additional minerals and vitamins or whatnot. Spending on better food. But that's where the issue of food insecurity comes in play. Because if we're talking about, quote unquote, better food in certain areas, I'll use our facility, for example. The closest Whole Foods, for example, is like 30 minutes away from where we're located at. No, I'm not going to say nobody, but people within that area, the urban demographic, are not traveling 20, 30 minutes to go to a Whole Foods and buy a marked up piece of produce that's not as great as something that we provide. Right. So why do that? So to your point, they'll just go to a Walmart. Which is not known for its produce at all. Walmart is a store. The Super Walmart is known for a whole bunch of other things, but produce isn't really one of them. But it's cheaper. Same thing going to like a Wawa or a convenience store. None of these are known for their for the healthier side of produce, but it's accessibility. They'll go there and think that they're doing their part, but you're really, again, just eating dense food. You're not eating anything that has a lot of nutritional value in it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. We're listening to Master Your Finances. We're going to take another quick break.
Do you want to prevent this from happening to you?
And it's gone. It's all gone.
Listen closely as we now return to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm here with Desmond Hayes, and we're talking about, just before the break, food insecurity and food deserts. So really you're trying to fulfill that area where like some of these things just aren't available, especially to the lower income neighborhoods where maybe these places don't go there. They don't have enough volume and they can't. So we really need the better food you eat, the healthier you are, and ultimately the better results you're going to get as far as just your health overall. So that leads to better health. And so that's very important, and I appreciate you doing that. So can anybody, like, how do we purchase like a hydroponic food? I guess that's my next question, because if I'm like out there saying, this is awesome, how would somebody like myself say, all right, I'm going to put that on the list this week? Right. How do we do that? Or is that not possible yet? Are we not quite to that point?
I mean, I would love to say again, I'm one of the only ones in the state, but there are, just at my scale, there are 2 more in the state that I'm familiar with. And a lot of people are still doing it like on a hobbyist level and trying to figure things out. But like we're located in supermarkets. We're at Pennington Quality Market. We're in New Egypt marketplace. We're working on 2 or 3 other ones right now. But just the clients that we have right now, they take up majority of our volume, which is again why we're trying to expand now. But yeah, I mean, there are a few of them out there, but you just labeling is everything.
Okay.
Labeling, it'll tell you if it is grown hydroponically, obviously if it's local.
So it have a sticker similar to like the organic sticker? Does it have something similar to that on there?
The organic thing is just basically just a stamp, but it'll tell you, normally the ones I've seen, it'll say hydroponically grown or hydroponically grown in a greenhouse, something like that.
Okay.
So, but again, you got to look into it because greenhouses, they use soil and some of them still use pesticides. So you just got to understand what the label says. Like mine's or ours, for example, say pesticide free, hydroponically grown in New Jersey, hydroponically seeded and grown in New Jersey. So everything on that label shows you that we're located, our base is here. And it's not, grown or shipped from somewhere else like California or anything like that. So the labeling is everything. But yeah, we're working on a couple other supermarkets. We're already in a few right now too. So, and what helps us even further and what we're trying to do is push and get the word of mouth circulating even more. So for directly to customers, we do have online sales too, where people will sit there and place an order online. Whether it be 1 or 2 products or so, we've delivered and we'll deliver it directly to them. And then there's the CSA, which I was speaking about earlier in the conversation, again, the Community Supported Agriculture, where that's a subscription. We actually had a couple of them come through just this past month where you'll get, depending on the level of subscription, we have one for, small size family, mid-size family, large size family. So you'll get so many types of produce in a box in a month. And then 2-3 weeks later, you'll get another 6 or 7 different products, depending on which share size you voted for online. Okay. So that's how we'll get the produce out to people directly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and larger volumes, larger amounts, people will reach out to us, like our clients and customers. That's more of behind the website. That's normally negotiations and contracts and things like that. So that doesn't happen online. Online is specifically for getting it more so out to the masses and getting it out to individuals or families from that standpoint. Yeah,
well, it's good to know that they can get it too. And I guess is it what's the site there? What is it? GeoGreens.com.
Yeah, we're at www.geogreens.org.
Okay.
On Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, or Facebook Meta. And yeah, but these are the main 3 ones we kind of pay attention to.
That's okay. No, because we mentioned, I just want to make sure I put that out there.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, you got an awesome thing. I know you're trying to grow. So kind of where do you see this industry headed from here? I mean, you got, as you said it started with the Greeks. It sounds like we're at this turning point happening now where maybe we're going to focus a lot more on this type of growth from various reasons you've already described, right?
Yeah.
And, healthier, more efficient, better land use, things like that. We stopped taking out the forests in Brazil and things like that, hopefully, right? I mean, hopefully we kind of stem this tide because at some point we're going to run out and we're going to be like, this is not a good situation.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about kind of where we're going from here?
I think it's a mixture of a lot of things where, like I was saying before, Mercer County has been great to us. So in order to really see a huge change in this direction, hydroponics and having different locations, there has to be support from the town, the state, community to help with different programs to provide some of the capital for growing this industry a lot more, because this is a very capital intensive industry. Again, I bootstrapped to get to this point. Now continue to grow and expand. Fundraising, or we're in the process of fundraising to acquire and gain some more capital. But once that happens, I think it can really continue to take a turn. The other side of that is if anyone wants or wanted to get into the industry, you really need to do your homework and dive into those things I was talking about a moment ago in terms of knowing your demographic. What do you want to grow? What are you going to sell? How long those things take to grow and sell? How much volume and yield you're going to be able to create in your facility? Because if you don't know those things, you're going to spiral downward. There's so many farms over the past several years that have just closed down because they looked at it as a great, sexy, modernized way of farming, but didn't do the research and
Right.
really dive into it. And, you know, I still get hit with this question every once in a while that hydroponics is sustainable. And I'll tell people that depends on who you ask. I know several stories where, you know, people, partners, investors put a lot of money into a facility, bought the most extreme, nice equipment, but nobody knew how the hell to farm. Why would you buy all this stuff and you don't know how to farm? You don't know the yield. You don't know what you're growing, so on and so forth. So now you spent all this money, you're in the red already, and now you're in the red even more because now you're spending so much more money doing R&D. Or now you've hired all this staff, but you're not selling anything. So now you are in the red for more than a year or so. So obviously that's not sustainable.
Right.
I could think of another story that I actually approached Philadelphia to open up a facility out there. They had a gentleman come from Silicon Valley, talked a very, very good game,
I'll
very
bet.
great salesman,
I'll bet.
you know, garnered a lot of money from the town, from the city, laundered everything. Of course, that's not sustainable. So I can come up with plenty of stories that's
Wow.
not sustainable, but I can also come up with several stories out there that they are working, they did their homework, they did their research, and it's working for them. So people that want to get into it, you have to understand economics around it because there are expensive and it's expensive, and there are a lot of things to do with it.
I mean, you're leading me to what my passion was, like the education side of the world is like I'd rather learn from others and like make all the mistakes myself because I run out of time, right? I don't have. My life's too short to make all the mistakes myself. I got to learn from other people. So, do you guys have like an association, or do you have like mentors, or do you have like consulting arms of your entities and things like that? Where because
That's
if
a
people
good idea.
Because if people try to start and do this, I mean, if I'm putting a lot of money into something, I'm like, where's your expert?
Yeah,
Where's your resident expert to make sure this thing's going to actually work?
That's a good idea. And for us right now, man, I'm kind of the brains behind everything and running everything. But I love to educate people on growing this way and the benefits to it. Again, I would love to say I invented it, but I didn't. So the information is out there. It's just a matter of you
McDonald's
actually doing
didn't invent the
research on it.
hamburger either, man.
Yeah, I know.
So they did fine.
So, but the information is out there. It's just a matter of you wanting to do it. I've sent people on their way from a tour and said,
Right.
okay, if you need anything, reach out to me. I can't say I'm gonna get back to you in 5 minutes,
Right.
but I'll get back to you. And I've been, reached out and hit up by a lot of people. Some
Okay.
people definitely take advantage of it a little more than others.
Right.
People have come back for multiple tours just to come back and ask me some more questions.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But at the end of the day, you still have to do it. I went out and, even though my house is shambles, I went out and did it and did all this research for 7-8 years before I got to this point. I didn't just wake up and say, okay, I'm gonna be a hydroponic farmer and not know anything about it. So that R&D weighs a lot on it. But I love, teaching more people about it. We're actually in the process of creating a curriculum for high schoolers right now,
There you
where our kids' book from K to third grade, that'll be done in like 2 weeks. So that's another source, one of obviously revenue, but it's also another way of getting the message out there that you can do this. This is ways to do it. It's a cool, modernized way of doing it, and these are the benefits to it. So not only are we just constantly just working on just selling it out and just putting the product out there, we want to continue to educate people on it. That's also why during COVID, I ended up getting a nutritionist certification because I didn't want to be the guy that was just here buy my product and just trying to just shove product in your face. No, I actually know what I'm talking about. In addition to my degree, I have this certification. These are the vitamins you're going to get from eating this. This is the minerals. This is how it's going to help the blood pressure, all these types of things. So I wanted to make sure I had that so that people didn't think, okay, this guy's just a salesman.
Right.
No, I know what I'm talking about. So take my advice and trust me, you'll see some benefits. I'm not going to tell you it's going to cure everything, but this would be better for you versus just doing what you probably have.
Good food's one of the keys, and I think we've all discovered that. We went for that old world of processed foods, and now we're finally at least aware.
Got to get away from all that Chick-fil-A all the time.
We got to get Chick-fil-A is fine occasionally, but not every day.
I love it,
man.
but you got to get away from that.
You can't do it every day.
Yeah, not every day.
This has been awesome, Desmond. You wanted to give us any final thoughts before we? sign off here?
No, I mean, if anybody is interested in it, definitely, reach out to us via our website. Apparently, the name has gotten around right. We actually hired, or we had an intern from last summer. She was great.
Okay.
We miss her all the time because she learned so much, and we had a great time with her. And I think we're supposed to be coming back to be helping her out in one of her classes too. But yeah, if anybody's ever interested in it, definitely reach out to us. We love educating and teaching people about it. So.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. You're listening to Master Your Finances. Have a wonderful day.
That's all for today's episode of Master Your Finances. Missed Kurt Baker's biggest money managing tip or even a full episode? Head on over to masteryourfinances.us or 1077thebronx.com/masteryourfinances. Look for Master Your Finances on Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time, only on 1077 The Bronx.